All right, let's talk about a band that didn't just play Southern rock. They practically defined it. We're diving into the incredible, triumphant, and tragic story of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And to really get a feel for this story, we have to start with this, a pretty chilling premonition from lead singer Ronnie Van Zant. He apparently told people more than once that he knew his destiny. And you know what? That sense of fate, it just hangs over everything the band ever did, from their biggest moments to their absolute darkest day.
So, how does a group of teenagers from Jacksonville, Florida, end up creating a sound that echoes for generations? Well, it all started in, believe it or not, the most humble of places.
Yep, a carport. You've got these teenagers, Ronnie Van Zant, Bob Burns, and Gary Rossington. They actually met playing on rival baseball teams. But one afternoon, they had this jam session in Bob Burns' parents' carport. And, well, let's just say baseball quickly took a backseat to rock and roll. Finding their sound was one thing, but figuring out who they were, that was a whole other story. They went through a bunch of names in those early years before they finally landed on the one that would become legendary.
And the story behind the name? It's just fantastic. So, Leonard Skinner was their PE teacher, and he was famous for his super strict policy against boys with long hair. As a joke, a total teenage move, the band started calling themselves Lynyrd Skynyrd, and the name just stuck. It became this perfect, ironic salute to the very guy they were rebelling against.
So, by 1973, the joke was definitely over and the legend had begun. Their debut album was a massive hit, and this is where they unleashed their signature 3-guitar attack. I mean, this wasn't just one lead guitar, no. It was this triple-threat wall of sound, this bluesy, complex weave of melodies that just became their thing. And it's all perfectly captured in one of the most epic rock anthems of all time, Freebird.
Okay, so with their next album, the band released a song that was somehow even bigger, a track that became the anthem for the South, but also one that's still really misunderstood.
Right, so the song was a direct response to Neil Young's Southern Man and Alabama. And in those songs, Young was really critical of the South's history with racism. But Ronnie Van Zant, he felt that was a pretty unfair generalization. He had this great quote. He said, "We thought Neil was shooting all the ducks in order to kill one or two." And if you dig into the lyrics, they are way more complex than they seem. So that line, "In Birmingham, they love the governor," that's about the segregationist George Wallace. But you have to listen closely for the boo, boo, boo in the background. That was the band's way of protesting him, not endorsing him. And the line about Watergate, that was basically them pointing a finger back and saying, hey, hypocrisy isn't just a Southern thing. And what's really cool is that despite this public, lyrical back and forth, there was no real bad blood. I mean, Van Zant was photographed wearing a Neil Young t-shirt all the time. And that respect, it absolutely went both ways. Neil Young himself later admitted that his lyrics in Alabama were, in his words, accusatory and condescending, and that Skynyrd's response was totally deserved. So this whole feud, it really ended not with a fight, but with a handshake. So the band is at the absolute peak of their powers. They've got hit records, sold-out shows. They're on top of the world. And that's when their story, and Ronnie Van Zant's chilling prophecy, takes a catastrophic turn. Okay, so October 17th, 1977, the band releases its 5th album, Street Survivors. It's an immediate smash. I mean, it goes gold in just 10 days. It's their fastest-selling album ever. It showcases the incredible talent of their new guitarist, Steve Gaines. It just captures the band at their absolute most powerful. They were, without a doubt, on top of the world.
For 3 days.
On October 20th, 1977, the band's chartered plane, it ran out of fuel. It crashed into a forest in Gillsburg, Mississippi. Ronnie Van Zant, Steve Gaines, his sister and backup singer Cassie Gaines, an assistant road manager, and both pilots, they were all killed. The rest of the band members who survived were all seriously injured. The drummer, Artemis Pyle, who survived, described it like this. Just listen to how visceral this is. The music world was just stunned. In a single instant, Lynyrd Skynyrd, as everyone knew them, was gone. So after the crash, the band was done. For 10 long years, the survivors were left to deal with their physical and emotional scars. And the music just fell silent. And this was the question on everyone's mind, right? It was overwhelming. Ronnie Van Zant was the soul of that band. He was the main lyricist, that untamable spirit. So how could the music possibly go on without its voice? Well, 10 years later, they found an answer. The surviving members got back together for a tribute tour, and they turned to the only person who could even possibly step into Ronnie's shoes, his younger brother, Johnny Van Zant. And Johnny, you have to give him so much credit. He faced this impossible challenge head-on. He knew he could never replace his brother, and he never even tried to. He made it clear he was there to honor the legacy, not to imitate it.
And that tribute tour? It was so successful, it sparked a complete rebirth. The band started recording new music, they started touring relentlessly again, and they cemented a legacy that has now spanned over half a century.
And just look at the numbers. They really speak for themselves. Over 28 million records sold. And that's just in the US. It just proves their music is absolutely timeless, crossing generations and generations of fans.
I mean, their place in music history is completely secure. They got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in 2006. Rolling Stone named them one of the 100 greatest artists of all time, and they still tour today playing for multiple generations of fans. It's incredible. The power of their music is just as strong as it ever was.
And this quote from Gary Rossington, a founding member, really sums up the mission of the modern band perfectly. Before he passed away in 2023, he said this: "It was all about honoring the guys they lost and carrying that name forward with pride."
Which really leaves us with this one big question, doesn't it? When you look at the whole story, the triumph, the tragedy, the rebirth, it all makes you wonder, how does a band's music become bigger than the members themselves? The story of Lynyrd Skynyrd seems to prove that some music isn't just a collection of songs. It's a force of nature, powerful enough to outlive its creators and take on a life all its own.